Hey everyone, what's up? It's SnakeFan82, aka Garrett. And here with me today, I have my ball python. His name's Dionysus. He's a little bit smaller than the Colombian boa that I had last week. They don't actually reach as great as lengths as the boas do. They get about 5 feet. Five's pretty big for them. They get pretty big around though. Um, but this is him. He's a little different coloration than the other one. Um, Not as active as boas. Balls tend to be a little more um, lazy and just are more apt to just hang out. But actually today is his day to be fed. So I was actually going to show you how you feed a snake and what you do. It may be a little graphic. Um, you might hear some squealing from the rat that I throw in there and everything. But just remember, it's the circle of life and everything happens for a reason, I guess. But I'm going to step away and put him in his box to be fed. You should never feed a snake in the same enclosure that you have them in, because every time that you open the lid to drop in food, they might just start thinking that your hand's food, so they'll strike at you more often than that. So I just put mine in a Tupperware container with some holes poked in it, and feed them in there. Eventually, like once they start to outgrow, you might have to move up to like different enclosures, but for now that'll work. Let me set this on the ground right here so you'll be able to see. This is the container that I feed him in. Um, as you can see, it's just a Tupperware container that you can get from Walmart. You just place the snake in there like that. Let's see. Make sure you guys can kind of see. Alright. Now, you should always be careful when dropping in any sized animal because they may have. There he goes. As you see, he struck pretty quickly. You can kind of hear it squealing. You should always make sure if you feed an animal live that you always stay and watch to make sure they're not injuring your snake. If your snake's not hungry, it won't eat. And you always want to make sure that you don't leave them where the rat's in there by himself if they're not hungry, because the rat will bite the snake. I've heard stories of rats actually destroying a whole snake that wasn't hungry while they were eating. And yeah, you don't want to injure your pet at the sake of feeding it. A lot of people choose to do frozen and then thaw them out in like water or something. I choose to do live for them just because it's a little more entertaining to watch than it is just to throw a dead one in there. And I've tried it a few times and they don't take it. He'll just sit there and watch it and not actually strike at it or anything. So I choose to do live. As you can see, he struck at it and then wrapped himself around the prey. Balls strike first and then wrap themselves around. Boas sometimes will strangle and then bite. So it just depends on the species of snake. Um, but as you can see, it's still kicking a little bit. He hasn't quite strangled it to where it's completely dead. Um, but it can take anywhere from a few seconds to a few minutes. It just depends on um, the animal and how hard your snake's actually squeezing. After it slows down breathing for a little bit, you'll be able to see him realize that it's done eating it, done strangling it, and he'll start to eat it. Digestion on snakes can take completely digest about 2 days. So if you have a snake, you shouldn't hold it for up to 48 hours after you feed them, or they will regurgitate it. And that their snakes' stomachs are lined with an acid that helps them break down food like completely, bones, fur, everything. So when they regurgitate it, they lose some of that acid in their stomach, and it is harder for them to digest their food and takes a while to grow back. So if your snake has a habit of regurgitating, take it to see a vet. There might be something wrong with it internally. But a general rule is just don't hold your snake 48 hours after you fed it. For larger snakes, it might be a little bit longer, like 3 days or so. Um, and you should also never feed anything to your snake that's too big Um, the general rule of thumb is uh, a little bit wider than the widest part of their body. Snakes can expand. Snakes unhinge their jaw when they eat, as you can kind of see now. Maybe a little bit. Let me flip this. Let me pull this around here. As you can kind of tell, um, they're able to unhinge their jaw as they eat, which allows them to swallow whole prey. Um, they can actually unhinge their jaw almost up to 180 degrees wide, and some pythons have hinges at the bottom of their jaw that allow them to open side to side. Bigger pythons like rock pythons and Burmese pythons can actually take down whole like deer and whole antelope. Um, Ball pythons normally, like I said, get about 5 feet. They get pretty fat in the middle. Um, Generally, people will feed them medium. Rats is the biggest that I've ever seen them eat. I fed him a smaller rat today, which is the first time that I've done this. He's getting pretty good size to where he can attack it. And ball pythons won't, if they don't think they can take down the prey, they won't try to take it down. Boas, on the other hand, will try to eat anything that they can fit their little mouths around. It's very unhealthy to feed your snake something bigger than it can handle. It can cause them to lose lives off their years if you continue to do it quite often. But I'm going to step away and let you guys watch him finish eating. So enjoy.